everybody. It is Backstretch Banter on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. I'm your host, Chris Childers. Great to be back. We've been off for the last couple of weeks. We've been on vacation from the show for obvious reasons. We didn't have any races. We had the Olympic break, and I hope everybody enjoyed watching the Olympics on NBC and listening to all the coverage here on Sirius XM. I've loved it. I mean, I've missed NASCAR. There's no question about it, but I think it's been an incredible shot of patriotism. I think anytime we can all be rooting for the same team, it's a beautiful thing. You know, on race weekends, we all got our favorite drivers and our favorite teams, and certainly here our favorites, the 6 and the 17. But this past couple weeks, it's all about the red, white, and blue. And that's been cool, and it's also been cool because we know how long of a season NASCAR is. Now, I'm not saying, feel bad for these guys because they're living an awesome life, being a part of the greatest race series in the world. But a lot of time on the road, a lot of time away from family. To have 2 weeks after Indianapolis before Richmond just to have a break. Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski went to the beach. Scott Graves going to join us today. He was out in Europe. He's never been before. So the first chance he's had to take his crew, because they're always so busy overseas, and get a feel for what that's like, that culture. It's different. I'm telling you, you go to Europe and you juxtapose it to America, and it is a different way of life. It's cool. Not saying that we're not cool, because we're super cool. We're just different. It's a different way of life, different way of watching sport, different motorsport interests. They love F1 over there. They love it. Everywhere you walk down the street in Italy or Spain, you see F1 stuff everywhere. Stores, and in Italy, Charles Leclerc he's a megastar. So kind of cool that Scott Graves had a chance to go over there and check things out. It is a reset time. We have had a lot of stress. I mean, if you look at RFK, we're in the playoffs with the number 6 team. The number 17 has work to do. Couple of weeks for everybody to recharge and get their mind right with 4 races left to go and try to make a push for this thing. I am convinced. I think our team has been so competitive and so good all year that if we just get 2 in, I think we're going to have a really good shot to win it. Either car. Because either car has done a hell of a job just putting themselves in position every week, and sometimes just bad luck. Like the last race we had, fuel. I mean, it was that simple. Came down to fuel for the number 6. And for Chris Buescher, just a couple of blown tires. Just a little bit of bad luck. But that's really the only thing that's hurt us. We've always had a good car every single week, no matter what the track. Whether it's a short track, whether it's, super speedway, does not matter. There has been a pattern of being competitive. So as long as the number 17 can get to the playoffs, and again, we got 4 left in a 3/4 track, 3.25 mile track this weekend in Richmond. There is certainly a lot of momentum, but I think it's good, to have that time, to have that vacation, to have that reset. For the 17 car, it's probably nice to walk away from the bad luck. From the finish that happened with Kyle Larson to, even when Brad won his race, the 17 was right there and it got chaotic at the end. And certainly Buescher was very, very mad, and for good reason. Not at Brad, because Brad won the race and that was beautiful, but for the way things ended, I think, with Tyler Reddick. So it's one of those things where you kind of like to have a breath. You kind of like to have a chance to step away and just kind of, okay, we're good. We know what we got to do. We know what these cars can do. We've had a chance to get out of the anxiety of the day-to-day. We've been with our families. For Chris Buescher, I mean, how nice was it to have two weeks with his newborn? Remember, he just had that kid during the Daytona 500 with his wife. That's valuable time when that kid is young, to be able to, hey, be there with your wife, but get to the beach and all that. So I gotta believe it was valuable. But let's talk to Scott Graves when we come back. He is the crew chief for the number 17 Fastenal Ford Mustang. Scott is, like I said, coming off a European vacation. He's a modern-day Chevy Chase. We'll talk to him next right here, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. It's Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. We're back, Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I'm your host, Chris Childers. We got an awesome guest today, the crew chief of the number 17 Ford Mustang, which is driven weekly by our boy Chris Buescher. Scott Graves, the crew chief, is with us. It's been a hell of a season. We just had a couple of weeks to unwind and kind of reflect on the first big part of the year. We have 4 races left, I think it is, until the playoffs. So work to be done, but hopefully everybody's recharged and refreshed. Scott Graves, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What was it like coming back to work after a couple weeks off in the middle of the season? The Olympics are going on, so NBC has certainly been preoccupied with programming, and understandably so, but you had a couple of weeks to get away from the sport. What was it like, and were you able to mentally walk away from the sport for a little while?
Yeah, actually, I feel like I was able to. I mean, it's always something you're thinking about in the back of your mind a little bit, but I was able to go have a good time with family and relax, go out and see some really cool things. But yeah, I got a good amount of time to relax, and then by the time it was over, I was I'm ready to get going. I know it's in front of us, and what we got here these next 4 weeks, and the closer we got to the break being over, like I say, I was ready to get back and get into it.
I would imagine you get a little antsy after like the first week. You're good, you're happy, you're with your family, you're taking some time off, but there's work to be done. You know that this team is not clinched into the playoffs. The 17 is not. It's been damn close, but still has work left to do. So I would imagine as it got deeper into it, you're like, all right, we're ready to go. Let's get back to work. Let's figure this out. Let's get ready for Richmond, which has been a friendly track and one you guys won last spring. So hopefully we can replicate that and not have to worry about the last 3 races and get into the playoff. But give us a little insight into the break. What did you do to unwind and get away and take your mind off NASCAR?
I guess so. We don't get to do this very often. So my family, my wife, both my kids, the kids are getting older. We never really taken a big vacation or gone anywhere. So we actually went over to Europe, went to Switzerland for a few days, and then down into Italy.
Where'd you go in Italy?
Things there. So it was La Spezia is right on the coast of the Mediterranean.
I was just there about a month and a half ago. Yeah,
okay.
It's beautiful.
So there's that whole is it Cinque Terre, I think? Yeah. There's the 5 little cities on the coast. We went and saw all that. So that was really cool to see that. Cool. And then Switzerland was awesome. Saw the Matterhorn. Always wanted to do that. There was a place called I think it was Jungfraujoch. It's like the highest. There's an observatory. It's like the highest observatory in Europe. There's still snow up there, and there's a massive glacier. So we went from 11,000 feet, seeing that, down to sea level, being at the Mediterranean. It wasn't a lot of time in any one place, but it was my wife said it was like the good starter tour of Europe.
Little sampler, that's
sampler.
How I felt. Yeah,
get to see a lot of different things.
Did you go to Florence? Did you have a chance to go inland at all? And go to Florence?
Did. So on our way back,
nice.
We spent call it a half a day in Florence, walking through the city, just getting to see the statues, the monuments, all that stuff. It was really cool to see all that stuff.
The statues are so cool. The David statue is exceptionally cool.
Yep.
The dome, everything about it. Florence is such a uniquely, I think the architecture is colored in a way that makes it kind of pop in a different way. You know, it's really interesting. So glad you guys got to do that. I'm curious. Was that your first time over there?
Yeah, for me. Years ago, I'd been to Scotland for a little bit on business, but never really over there to sightsee and check things out. For all of us and my family, it was the first time we'd really gone over to do anything like that. Like I say, you really don't get the opportunity to do that very often.
Sure.
And
you're busy.
Yeah,
it's a long season.
Usually it's usually you really don't even get a summer vacation, or so it's kind of a really unique situation for us. And like I say, kids are 17 and 20.
Yeah.
Don't have a lot of opportunities to do this kind of thing. So it all fell in line at a really good time for us and took advantage of it.
You probably wouldn't mind if we had an Olympics every year, just to get a little,
exactly.
little time away. Was it kind of extra nice just to have this happen this year?
Yeah. Just to have that much of a break. It is, like I say, it is a little difficult because you're right in the middle of your season, the competitive season, but it is nice to have it because like so many summers I've never even had a vacation or taken a break. The break is always just the off season, the month of November, December, and part of I guess January. So it's that's usually when you focus any kind of vacation you're going to take. So really, like say, unique situation to be able to do something in the middle of summer like that.
Yeah, and it's hard to get to Europe, and it's not as nice when you visit at that time of the year.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Kind of neat to be able to do it in the middle of August and late July. I'm curious, as you were there, and we'll talk a little bit more because, we've had 2 weeks off from the last Indy race, and we'll get to that in a minute, and we'll get to Richmond. But I always find it interesting when I visit Europe, and I've been a couple of times in the last couple of years because it gives me an interesting perspective on the sports world outside of America. And the one thing that I pick up on big time is A, they love football, which we call soccer, and B, they love motorsports. Now, obviously not NASCAR, but I don't know if you picked up on it yourself. Did you notice a heavy presence of motorsports when you were walking around the streets?
Not too much in the areas we were at.
Okay.
The soccer, for sure.
I saw a lot of Ferrari, man. And maybe it was just being in Rome. Yeah, in Rome, but man, it was everywhere.
Yeah. There was where we were, I think Switzerland, and you didn't see much of it there. The things I found unique were just like people on bikes everywhere. Like the amount of cars, like pedestrian, like street cars, is much lower. Obviously, their public transportation
cars are a lot smaller too.
yeah. Everybody's running the really tiny cars. A lot more public transportation, like people on bikes everywhere. Definitely a different way of getting around there. But everything's so much closer. Like the populations are all much closer to each other and not quite as spread out as we are here. So it's a little different scenario.
Do you think, and again, this is a unique show. We've had a couple of weeks off. It's kind of fun to talk about this vacation that it never exists for anybody. So it's kind of cool. I've always wondered if NASCAR has a chance ever to pick up steam internationally. And I don't know what that would look like. I don't know how. I know the IndyCar, the 500 certainly has its level of interest overseas, but outside of that, American racing, we kind of stick to our own world. NASCAR certainly, it's big in our country. I don't know how big it is in other parts of the world. But has it ever been talked about? Is there ever a vision to? I think our racing is better than the road. I know we do some road racing, but it's right. Better. It's more exciting. It's more balanced. We have more winners. It's not Verstappen every week,
right?
Or every other week winning the race. Do you think there ever would be a chance to grow it?
Yeah, I think so. There's I think that's the one part that is like you said, like our track, the circle track racing versus road course. Like everything over there that at least I've seen is predominantly road course. So I think that's something that maybe offers like a unique, something new to them. But it also might take a little bit of a time for them to get used to it and take a liking to it, right? Compared to how popular it is here. I would think so. And you go over there, I think the other part is just the manufacturers. I think if you got more of the German or, Italian manufacturers involved, then also it gives them that sense of, pride of, their nationality is competing in some of these sports as well. So, I think you'd have to link some of those things into it, and then there's a pathway to grow it. Because certainly there were some really nice cars over there that you see driving around.
Did you notice the Fords? There's quite a bit of Fords on the road in Europe.
There are.
Which is cool. That's the one that really that's the American manufacturer that kind of pops over there.
Yeah.
And they love Mustangs. They love them.
Yeah. So I think there's a possibility for it, but it definitely takes a little bit of work and kind of introducing it to them and see where it goes from there. Yeah.
I was walking around a parking lot in Barcelona recently, and I'm like, there was 7 Fords, and I'm like, that's kind of awesome, kind of neat to see all the Fords. As somebody who works with RFK and does the NASCAR, it really was kind of a source of pride to see that Ford logo over there and so prominently displayed. And cabs were driving it. It was kind of cool. Anyway, enough about the trip. I just thought it was interesting because it's so unique. Like you said, you're in the middle of the season. Did you have to deal with any work at all when you were overseas, or did everybody kind of know to to chill for a little bit, or were you getting emails? Were you getting calls? Was Jack getting antsy? I mean, how did that work?
Nothing from Jack, but there a couple of emails had come through, or just a text, but for the most part, not too much. I actually took like the first week, we got back from Indy. I spent that first week kind of like doing some prep work to get ahead. So I was actually, the first week I worked a little bit of it, like say trying to get ahead for Richmond and Michigan, get ourselves in a good spot for that, so that I could go away for the second week and not really have to think about it very much. So we kind of traded off some work. Myself, my engineer, like a lot of guys took the first week. So, my engineers, they took that first week. I worked that first week, and then we swapped out. So I kind of gave them kind of some preliminary stuff and some ideas and things to think about. And then they had that second week to dig a little deeper into it. So then when I got back this week, we're all on the same page and able to get into it and really not miss a beat with it.
What was the energy like on Monday when everybody got back to work?
There's a lot of conversations about, hey, what'd you do? And, talking about trips and things like that. But I think everybody's kind of, especially on the 17 team, we know it's in front of us, and everyone's eager to get after it and like say, get going in the next 4 weeks here.
Did the bosses, Brad, obviously, Jack, and everybody else, did they encourage everybody to take a little break, to reset a little bit? I'm sure every team probably approached the 2-week break differently, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. I think Brad's pretty big on it. I think he'd even tried to get it to where, like it was kind of a industry-wide shutdown for the 2 weeks. So he was definitely big on everybody.
Did that work or not?
No. No, it's hard to get everybody to agree on something like that. But he definitely encouraged everybody to take some time and enjoy it. Like I say, he's big on, obviously this is a demanding sport. He's big on also making sure that you're spending time with your family and taking care of things there, and you're just not, just completely one-sided on just letting this dominate your life and nothing else outside of that. So
I would imagine it's really easy to let this dominate your life. You're on the road so damn much. It's a long season. You got to really work on balance. I got to believe, and having a boss that gets that has got to be really cool. It
helps. It helps for sure, because otherwise, like say, it can become all consuming. It can be.
You burn out. I mean, you burn out. As much as you love it, you can only do so much of the same thing over and over and over again before you're like, all right, I need a little bit of a reset. I think that's just human, regardless of how much we love our job and what we do for a living. I'm glad that everybody did and got a chance to reset. So what were the meetings like on Monday? Was there ever a chance to go over Indianapolis? Did that happen after the race? Did that happen Monday? Do we just forget about it because of the blown tires? I mean, how are we approaching that?
We're actually tomorrow we're going over because we'll kind of do our pre-event for Richmond, but before that we're going to kind of do a review of Indy as well once everybody's here, and so we're kind of tackle the two in one and go through that part of it. So we still we had our pit crew review Monday, just going through all the pit stops and how that side of the race went. So we went through that part of it. We'll hit Indy tomorrow before we go through Richmond.
The 2 weeks in between, give me an idea of the training that do the pit crew guys have to stay on their physical regimen, because it's such a demanding job and you're out in the middle of the sun and it's hot and it's heavy.
Yeah, they took some time too.
Okay, good.
To be able to reset. And then obviously back into full practice mode here this week. But they were able to take some time as well. So it was good overall.
I would imagine those guys still got in a morning run or a little lift, knowing
there's a certain amount, from the physical side of it. Obviously, they can't just completely go to zero.
Knowing those
personalities and everything.
Exactly, I would imagine they kept something going, but try to get a little R&R while they're at it as well. Scott Graves, our guest, the crew chief of the number 17. We'll talk about Indy and we'll get into Richmond, but I want to know, now that we've had a little bit of a reset, and it's not like a mid-season reset. We're pretty late in the damn season, and we have a handful of races left before we get into the playoffs. How would you describe, I think, luck? You have to be good, you have to be skilled, and I think this team has certainly done a hell of a job of putting itself in position to have success, but the luck up until now, in your opinion, for the 17 car has been what in 2024?
Not great. I think it's like we're balancing out for all the luck we had last year. We had,
right.
I don't know that we even had, if we had one DNF, that was last year. That was a lot. This year we've had a lot of, just a lot of things that have affected our races and outcomes. Like say making up for some of that. So it's, a lot of it's, self-inflicted. Even I'll admit to that. But then there's been some things that aren't been out of our control, and it's all of it adds up though to get us in a spot where we're a lot closer on the cut line than where we need to be for sure.
How do you put every race behind you and move on to the next one? And I remember seeing you vividly involved at the end of the Larson controversy with the finish. I've said it a million times and everybody says stop it, but
yeah,
I won't. I still think we won. I saw it again today. I saw somebody post it, and every single time the 17 cars ahead. I don't understand how. I know they showed you something that makes me look like an idiot, but what have you learned from just some of those incidences this year? That one specifically.
That one specifically has been really tough because there's been weeks where I kind of get over it.
Does it haunt you at all? Like you're like,
oh
come
yeah,
on.
I mean, because at this point where like that win would have been obviously
you're in.
We're in and we're in a totally different spot, and to be that close and to. It keeps it's tough because it pops up on X all the time. Like, you're scrolling through stuff and it's like, oh, hey, let's replay this finish again. And everyone's looking at it as like a highlight of how great the racing is. I'm like, no, stop. You look at the last lap and what happened. And then you're getting door slammed and run below the line and you have to lift and, oh, hey, Kyle Larson wins. And it's like, okay. And the more I see it, it's like, well, that's great. He had to door slam us to win the race. That's pretty cool. But, I see that, and then now that we're in the Olympics, I keep seeing all these. There's all these photo finishes, right? And they're showing the same.
Yes,
you see the red lines, and hey, this person was. That's the red line they showed me after the race.
Yep.
And then I saw they were showing the triathlon one. It's like they had a reverse image line.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, we didn't have a reverse image. All we saw was the one image, and it's like, it's kind of hard to tell. And then you see the reverse image, and it's like, well, maybe we need to have reverse images too, so we can really get all the angles on these things. But those are the things that make it tough. Because otherwise I was trying to forget about it and move on, and because you dwell on these things and they'll eat you up. So it's you try to move on. Like if there's anything to learn from a bad situation, I try to learn and take that, and then so you don't repeat that same mistake again. But then to dwell on it long term is never good. So you try to move on. It's just that one in particular when images keep popping up and things keep popping up to remind you of it. It makes it tough.
I see it all the time, and it's still, when I see it, I still think we're ahead. But whatever. It is what it is, and hopefully we'll be in victory lane and it won't be questioned and we'll be fine and we'll be firmly in the playoffs. And Richmond would certainly be a good track to do it. And Buescher has confidence after what happened a year ago. Let's take a break. We'll come back. I want to get into that. You certainly had success a year ago. Doesn't matter. Does any of it translate year to year and track to track? So let's talk about that when we come back. We got Scott Graves, the crew chief of the number 17 Ford Mustang driven by Chris Buescher. We'll talk more about it when we come back right here. It's Backstretch Banter. We're back here, Backstretch Banter on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. I'm Chris Childers. It's been fun today so far. Scott Graves, our big featured guest, the crew chief of the number 17 Ford Mustang, which is going to be the Fastenal Ford Mustang, which it's classic. I mean, the 17 and Fastenal go together like peanut butter and jelly. And cannot wait to see it. Hopefully it'll be nice to see it in victory lane because those people have been incredible partners for such a long time. Hell, they help in the shop. They got all those vending machines and all that. So it would be really cool to see them back in victory lane. I know it would mean a lot to them. Scott Graves, like I said, is with us, the crew chief. What has Fastenal meant to you from your perspective as a crew chief? Because they are a different kind of partner considering they can kind of help you a little bit do your job.
Yeah, for sure. Fastenal's been a great sponsor for a long time, really. I mean, they were on our car when we won the Xfinity Championship, and that was 2015. And I remember even when I was working in Xfinity with Carl Edwards back in don't know, 2011, 10 and 11. I mean, they were on the card then, and been around for a long time, been a great supporter of our team. So that's been huge. And yeah, they offer products and services, that we get to use here in the shop. So I mean, it's kind of a good relation, obviously a really good relationship for us. I mean, can't thank them enough for everything they've done for us throughout the years.
Good to have a healthy blend. You got Fastenal to help you out. I know, Castrol certainly serves its purpose. You got all kinds of good partners. BuildSubmarines.com might not help you in the shop, but damn, is it cool. I think to, be a part of building a submarine and help your country. Yeah. That's a pretty cool sponsor. So we've had some good ones. Certainly Fifth Third Bank, outstanding partner. So great people that help the 17 car every single week. And if I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize because they're such a good group. Last year, spring, 3 in a row. Richmond was one of them. Everything was beautiful. We haven't won yet. How much does last year matter? Does it matter? Does anything translate? Did you learn anything? I know we've raced there already this year. We had a decent showing, but give me an idea of is the strategy the same from last year? Or is everything different?
Yeah, it's so the biggest difference for us this year has been, I guess, with the tire and the aero. That we got the simple diffuser this year under the car compared to what we had last year. Seems to have changed a little bit for us. I mean, we were close in the spring race, but we just weren't quite as good. I think the racing changed a little bit. The tire seems to have a little less fall off. So, for Richmond, where it used to be the really high fall off, you see guys, falling through the field hard, that kind of thing. There wasn't as much of that. The racing got a little tighter. Everybody's kind of running the same lap times. Some of the things you've heard, that people complain about a little bit with what we've had. It brought a little more of that to Richmond in the spring race. If I look back at last fall, it was a race where there was a lot of fall off, and we had a car that was really able to take advantage of that. Being able to drive through the field, and that was our strong suit there, and we didn't get to show that quite as much in the spring race. So I know there's some unique things going on this time. We've got some different tire compounds going, tire options. We've got the standard tires that we've been using at the short tracks, but they're bringing the option, which is that, the red label tires that we had at the All-Star race. So we're going to have that in play, and we'll see how that works. I think it can go a few different ways that might end up changing the strategy. So do
you have a gut feeling going in of what you might lean towards, or is it going to be more as we get closer to the race?
Hopefully we get to practice if it's not raining. That's going to be
fingers crossed.
It's going to be really important for us. My gut. There's a way I would hope it would go, and then there's kind of my gut is, I see it, possibly being like the All-Star race where that red option tire is just a faster tire that, I know they're looking for something that falls off harder, but I don't know that it's going to do that. I think it's going to have probably the same fall off trend, but it's going to be 0.2 of a second, a lap faster than the standard tires. So, I don't know that you're just going to see it fall off a cliff. Maybe I'm wrong when we get there, but and if that happens, then I don't think it really improves the racing much, because it's just going to be, everyone's going to be going just a little bit faster, and the passing is probably going to be that much harder. Yeah. If you get guys, use them at different times, then okay, maybe you get a little bit of a mix up, but we all tend to migrate to the same answers, and that kind of creates some of the situations where everybody's running the same speeds. But what I would hope for, honestly, is that we have seen that tire in a couple of cases. We tested it at Iowa, and it actually blistered pretty quick. It was fast for a couple laps, but then it blistered, and then it something that you wouldn't be able to run a whole run on it. So if it could get in that situation where that tire isn't a long run option, and it's only like if there's a late caution in a stage or something, you fire those on, and then you're forced to run the stages longer, because Richmond, we always do that deal where you get into the second and third stage and everybody two stops it. Yeah. if those reds don't work and you can't run them long enough, then it's going to force everyone to one stop those stages, and we start running longer runs. Then possibly you get to the point where those tires do fall off more, and you know, if our car is good on a long run, then I think that would be a good thing. So I kind of hope it turns out like that it forces everybody into into some longer runs. I just don't know if it's going to do that, because you look at what happened at North Wilkesboro, and we just basically ran the whole race on the reds just because they were the fastest tire, and there was no penalty to it. So it's going to be interesting. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, how it works out. Practice will tell us quite a bit.
It's one of the challenges of being a crew chief, is just having that right gut feeling and then testing things out and hoping that you have the right information to make a good informed decision. And if you don't, then you'll find out eventually if you made you'll find out eventually if you made a good decision or not. I am curious, Scott Graves, our guest, the crew chief for the Ford Mustang number 17, the Fastenal Ford Mustang this weekend in Richmond. How much communication do you have and the teams have with Goodyear and the tires and what you guys want to see, the changes every year? Do you ever tell them, like, this is absolute crap and we need to not ever run that? Like, how much conversation goes on?
I mean, it's primarily at the test. Like when we do tire test for them, that's our chance to kind of give them some feedback. Obviously they get opinions from a lot of people, getting pulled in a lot of different directions. So, I mean, they give us a chance. Obviously, we get to talk to them, and we tell them what they think about. They'll usually bring different compounds and constructions to some of these tests that we go to, and it's our chance to give them feedback. What the drivers think about them, and so we give them that, and that's probably our biggest source of input to things. Obviously, they're getting feedback or direction on the NASCAR side of it as well, and and different, probably different teams have different input on things as well. So, like I say, they get a lot of things coming in from a lot of different sources, and I don't know. It obviously doesn't make their job easy, because they also have to make tires that last and aren't having problems, and lots of other things as well. So it's a big task, but I think the idea of having a tire that falls off. That's what we're looking for. It's like the drivers are talking about, horsepower, which would potentially or likely do the same thing. If you can overpower the tires to where you're actually burning them up that way, then that's one way of doing it. Or you really work on the tires, the compounds and constructions themselves, and figure out ways to make them fall off at a faster rate. I think that makes for it brings the drivers into it a little bit more. It would. Yeah, things will probably get strung out a little more, but it also gives guys a chance to pass a little bit more, as well as some guys are going to struggle with how to manage that. So there's like I said, there's some potential to it. It's going to take a little bit of time, and obviously more tests and things to figure it out.
You might be the wrong guy to talk to you about it, but I always just found the tires to be fascinating, because we know how competitive car manufacturers are when it comes to racing, and what it means to Ford to be good, or Toyota or Chevy, or in other series, what it means for them to be good and sell cars, eventually at their dealerships. I mean, that the whole thing about NASCAR was, if you won on Sunday, you'd sell on Monday, right? That was kind of the big thing. So I always wondered if tire manufacturers were just as competitive, because you had Goodyear and NASCAR and Firestone and Indy and Pirelli, which Pirelli gets crapped on constantly, which is why I won't get them on mine. Like, I'm a Goodyear guy because of racing. So I'm sure there's somebody out there that knows about that kind of stuff, but I always thought it was interesting, and I wondered how competitive they were, because if you're good in the racing series, I gotta believe that your average customer that's into cars is going to be like, well, I trust that. Right. I trust that, to do the job on my own, personal vehicle. So anyway, probably a different conversation for somebody else, but I always thought it was interesting. Scott Graves is our guest here. We're going into Richmond. I think there's 4 tracks left to make the playoff. Chris is right there. Ross Chastain and all these other drivers are trying to jockey for position to get in. How do you feel about this collection of tracks overall, with Richmond certainly being a track you've had success, but you've been with Chris for a while in different series? The next 4, do you think it puts you in a good position to get to the playoff?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our company and what we've done at these 4 tracks in the last year, I mean, obviously we won Richmond, Michigan, Daytona last year, and then Brad won Darlington, earlier this year, and obviously we had a shot at it, and we're running really well there as well. So it's a good set of tracks for us. Obviously, it's a new year, so there's some things that are a little different, some challenges for us. We know we can't just go back to Richmond with what we had. Last fall would be nice, it'd be easy, but some things have changed, so we're having to make some little adjustments for that to try to get ourselves as competitive as we need to be there, but still feel good about it. Even this spring we still ran well, finished in the top 10. So we got a good notebook to build off of, and we can make that a little bit better. So feel good about that. Michigan, our mile and a half and bigger tracks, we've had pretty fast cars. I feel like we've been in good shape there this year. You go back to that Kansas race and some of the others that we've been pretty strong at. So feel good about that one. Daytona Speedways. It's a little bit more of a a lucky kind of match, but we know our cars are good there. We always run well at Speedways. So we'll have a good chance there. It's just kind of a toss up and on that kind of race sometimes of what it comes down to at the end. And then Darlington, obviously feel really good about. So looking forward to the stretch, the 4 races we got coming up here. Just know that we gotta have all the details right. We gotta execute well. We just gotta really, just in my mind, put things together. A little better than we have. We've had fast cars one week. We've had good pit crew one week, good strategy one week, but just getting it all together like we know we can, like we have in the past, just seems to have been kind of our struggle here on some of these things. So really just got to get that all tied up here and put it together.
So the next 4 races, it's obvious victory lane is desired. There's 12 playoff spots that are taken. There's 16 spots. So the way I look at it right now, we have 4 at larges, and if anybody else wins that hasn't won yet, then we have 3, then 2, then 1, then maybe, you know what I mean? So that possibility certainly does exist over the next 4 races that we could have, 4 different winners. I mean, unlikely, but certainly it could happen. With that said, you're in the playoffs now if it ended today. How stable do you have to be the next 4 races? Do you get extra aggressive, or do you make sure that, if anything, we just got to get across the line and DNFs are not an option here? I mean, is there any sort of different mindset when it comes to how aggressive you need to be to get to where you need to go in a month?
Yeah, I think, DNFs are obviously it's not an option. So
let's just go ahead and knock on wood and say that's not happening.
We'll take that one off the board. Really, I guess it's going to be, and I don't want to call it points racing, but it's good racing. We got to have the maximum points, but I also feel like if we're doing that and we're in a position to get a lot of points, we're also going to be in a position to be close to winning these races.
Sure.
So that's that's the mindset. I can think of some things last year. Like I look at we were talking about the Michigan race from last year. We on the 17 were able to take some chances strategy wise to put ourselves in position to win the race, whereas the 6, they had to put themselves in a position to get stage points, which took them away from being there in the same position we were to try to win the race at the end. So little decisions like that. At the end of the day, we both came out of there with a ton of points. We had another win. They had a lot of points. Either situation's gonna be good for us. In the next 4 weeks, it's I know I'm gonna lean towards. I'm gonna be obviously looking more on the point side of things. It's we're not in a spot where we're going to do like the all in to go for the win or nothing. I'm not going to put myself in I've heard, people say like, I'm not going to put myself in a spot where we could finish. We have a car that's good enough to finish 10th, but we finished 30th because we took a risk to go for a win. We're not in that spot. It wouldn't be the smart move to do right now. A low percentage type thing, obviously, to get a win. the win would be great, but if it's a low percentage and the chances are it's really just going to hurt you in the long run, that's not going to be the right move, I don't think.
Scott Graves, our guest. I got one more for you because I am so curious. I know a lot of times we don't ever, talk about this kind of stuff, but I am the technology that goes into NASCAR is incredible. And I know not everybody gets to sit behind a crew chief, but there's, certainly been a handful of times in my life. Usually it's behind Matt McCall. I don't know why they never let me sit behind you, but I always end up behind Matt, and I'm looking over his shoulder, and there's so much information in front of him. What exactly do you guys have that you're looking at? There's all kinds of different screens. I mean, obviously there's the actual race in front of you, but there's like numbers and digital things and all. Like, what are you actually using during a race to help you make choices and decisions?
Yeah, there's obviously the timing and scoring has a lot of information about it. Like you're looking at, your lap time versus the guys that are around you, the leaders, your gap to the guys in front of you when you're coming down to pit cycles. When you're looking at if you can short pit somebody and get a couple positions, obviously you got to be within a certain amount of time of them to actually make that work. So there's a lot of stuff like that. We have all the SMT, which is kind of the live, information of what the driver's doing. So you can get, Is that the little graphic cartoon thing? It'll show the car, and then it's got all all the squiggly lines going.
That's always the most fascinating to me. So is that useful? Like, is that a useful tool?
Yeah, because it's okay. So your driver's usually giving you some feedback that you're getting on the radio, and you're looking at the data. Trying to kind of correlate to what he's saying. All right, like I can see in a steering trace, if he says he's tight, you can kind of help pick out what part of the corner. And then also you can see if he's catching somebody, you can pull that car up, and then you can look at, all right, where are they struggling? Where are we a little bit faster? You give that feedback to him, so it's useful for him. Like, all right, if he's going to make ground on somebody, it's going to be on this part of the track, and then how does he use that to set him up for a pass potentially? So there's a ton of information coming in. And on restarts, we're always because there's the choose. We're trying to figure out, what lane is the best lane for a restart.
Did you have all this information when you started as a crew chief, or is it developed over time, the technology?
It's developed over time for sure. What did you have at the beginning? How basic was it compared to what we have now? the first stuff.
Like your really first year was when?
Just timing score. My first year as a crew chief, first races I called were in 2012.
Okay, so a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, basically you had timing and scoring back then, and you had the TV broadcast.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so you're looking at timing, scoring, you're looking at the TV broadcast, and that's
which anybody can get on their phone.
Yeah. I want to say really that was the biggest. I mean, that was pretty much all you had at that time. But there's so many data streams coming in now of information. It's easy to get overloaded. That's why you got to have a couple people there with you, or even back at the shop in the war room supporting. Is you break it down, and they're digesting all their part of it, and then they can give you the kind of the cliff notes of what they see as things are going on. So it's definitely a lot of information, a lot to process and think about as you're going through the race for sure.
Is there any technology that doesn't exist that you wish did, that will eventually probably come and help the crew chief? It's hard to think about now because you don't know until it's there. Yeah.
The magic 8 ball, and when the cautions are going to come out.
Yeah, there you go.
If we could come up with an accurate,
could you imagine?
Accurate prediction tool on that. I mean, there's some things there that I mean, even to that point, we're looking at statistics on tracks, like what tracks that have cautions. What are the statistics of what lap it's likely to happen on, what stage is going to, where are they going to happen? We're looking at stuff like that. But those are, I mean, if there was something that could help always predict the wild cards that come in during the race that just blow your strategy completely up.
Are there caution analytics? Does every track have an analytic of when cautions are more likely to happen than others, or does that not exist yet?
Just from when you go off the historical data.
Yeah.
And it obviously we had years of it, with the previous generation car.
Well, that's the thing. It changed. Yeah,
it
sure.
changes.
So, yeah.
You get a new car, and this car has been dramatically different from the old car. So it kind of reset all that stuff. And even from the first year with this car to now, it's changed because the first year everyone was learning. There are a lot of different reasons for cautions coming out the first year, and then it's kind of gradually gone away. So it's all evolving, even with this car, with where we're at. So it's not an ideal perfect science at this point. It's something we're learning as we go.
Well, great to talk to you. I kept you long enough. Thank you so much for being a part of it this week, and good luck this weekend in Richmond. We appreciate it. We'll be rooting for you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Scott Graves, crew chief of the number 17, will come back and wrap it up next right here on Backstretch Banter. We're back here. It is SiriusXM's Backstretch Banter on NASCAR Radio, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, Channel 90. I'm Chris Childers. Fun time talking to Scott Graves. There's so much you can get into with a guy like that, that's a crew chief, that's been doing it for a while. I thought his response to the technology, 2012 wasn't that long ago when you think about it, but think about what he said about the technology that is in the box, that is in that pit box. It used to just be the timing, the scoring, and the broadcast of the series. And I'm sure they've had that forever. You've probably had that since the 80s and the 90s. But to see, if you ever have a chance, or just go on YouTube and, see somebody that is, sat behind a crew chief and to look at all of the information. There's like this graphic car that's their driver, and they see like he mentioned, the squiggly lines. Crazy real-time technology. Crazy real-time feedback. And it makes you wonder, not necessarily for us. I'm sure, in our lifetimes, well, it might change. If you're a younger fan, it might change a lot. Now, and let's just say you're 20 and you're 60. NASCAR could look completely different in 40 years. No question about it. But it's one of those things, man, that it's just the technology. That's what's so cool about our sport. It's not like basketball, where basketball is only going to have so much evolution. Football is only going to have so much evolution. These are machines. And we know how much technology has improved machines. Look at think about the car you drive every day as a regular civilian, and how different it was from the car you had in the 80s or 90s. And the things it can do, and it can keep you in your lane, and it can tell you if somebody's next to you, and it can automatically brake. Hell, my friend was in Phoenix the other day. They got into a self-driving Uber. Nobody was behind the wheel. That's how crazy this stuff is getting. So hopefully we don't have self-driving cars. I think the race cars, I'd rather see somebody like Buescher and Keselowski behind the, and get the human element of it. But kind of wild that we've gotten to that point in time. And certainly the technology keeps changing, so the sport will keep evolving with it. So that was kind of a neat thing to talk about with Scott Graves. We are done. Want to thank everybody: Elijah Burke, Thomas Burfield, Kevin Woods, Brandon Lee, the very famous and handsome Brandon Lee. We love him. We are done. We thank you all for listening to Backstretch Banter on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, Channel 90.